Aida Noureddin. She's the owner of the biggest case that occurred in Egypt in 1997, killing more than 29 people. Aida was born in 1973 in Alexandria, Egypt, and when she grew up, she worked in the nursing field, and due to her competence, Aida worked in the largest and most famous hospitals. Also, due to her excellence, she used to work in the most important department within the hospital, which was the intensive care unit. But before we delving into the details of our story, please don't forget to support the channel by hitting the subscribe button. And now, let's get to know the full story. The story began when more than one patient entered the operating room. The surgery was successful, and then they moved to the recovery room. After that, they were transferred to the intensive care unit in preparation for moving to a regular room, so the patient could leave the hospital. The doctors informed the patient's family about the success of the operation, but suddenly, the patient died without any apparent reasons. The strange thing was that all the doctors at the hospital confirmed that all the operations performed on patients who died were very successful surgeries with no problems observed. Vital signs for all patients were very normal, and it was puzzling for the doctors that after entering the intensive care unit, patients experienced a sudden deterioration in their health, leading to death without any apparent reasons. Doctors suspected something unnatural, as all patients were leaving the operating room in a good health. The most evident cause of death according to doctors was complete paralysis of the body muscles and noticeable relaxation of the throat muscles. The strange thing was that the symptoms experienced by patients who died in the hospital were all very similar and mostly appeared due to the injection of a drug called Flexine. Doctors used to administer this drug to patients just before they entered the operating room to help relax the muscles, specifically the throat muscles, allowing doctors to insert oxygen tubes into the patient's throat during the surgery. The drug Flexine shouldn't be administered to patients as an injection, except under a medical supervision. No one knew what was the reason behind the death of more than 27 people in the same way and for the same causes, until a doctor named Adel Isa came to work at the hospital. This doctor was surprised by what was happening to the patients after being transferred to the intensive care unit, and also by the similarity in the cause of death among them. Dr. Adel requested the medical files of those who died to examine them himself and to ensure that there were no incorrect procedures during the operations. He discovered that all these patients had successful surgeries and there was no clear reason for their deaths except that it was a deliberate act by someone. Dr. Adel also discovered that the only common factor among them was the presence of a nurse named Aida in the intensive care unit. However, the mystery that eluded him was why the nurse would engage in such act. Despite Dr. Adel's suspicions, the rest of the doctors considered them mere doubts and didn't take them into serious consideration until a 12-year-old girl named Sabah arrived to the hospital. She underwent a successful surgery, but later on experienced the same symptoms that led to deaths of the previous patients before her, which were complete paralysis and respiratory distress. The doctors acted swiftly, saving her and restoring her consciousness. And when the girl was questioned, she revealed that a nurse had injected her, leading to a rapid loss of control over her body and a feeling of suffocation, and shortly afterward the same nurse urgently called for the doctors to assist the girl. And when she was asked about the name of this nurse, the little girl informed them that the nurse's name was Aida. Consequently, an internal investigation was conducted within the hospital. Aida denied all charges leveled against her by the investigative management. Aida also requested to be transferred from the intensive care unit to dispel suspicion around her and to prove the allegations wrong. And indeed, she was relocated to another department in the hospital. However, All doctors were surprised as cases of patients' deaths persisted in the same manner and for the same causes, even after Aida's transfer. The incident that brought attention to this case was when the girl Sabah left the hospital and encountered a journalist. Sabah shared her story with him, leading to an article titled "Strange Consecutive Deaths in One of the Largest Hospitals in Alexandria, with No Explanation." Due to this article written by this journalist whom Sabah and her family spoke to, a media uproar followed around this issue. People began questioning what was happening inside the hospital. After a few days, a patient named Abdelkader came to the hospital and he underwent a successful surgical operation and was transferred to the intensive care unit. However, he suddenly died in the same manner. His family was informed and they received his body and buried him. Dr. Adil's suspicions grew towards the nurse Aida, so he officially reported her to the police, accusing her of being the cause behind the deaths of many patients in the hospital by injecting them with the drug Flixene. And when Dr. Adil was questioned by police about how to confirm death with this drug, the doctor informed them that anybody retains this drug for 45 days after death. Therefore, police authorities requested the extraction of Abdelkader's body to be sent to forensic examination, and indeed, this is what happened. The cause of death was revealed after the forensic report, confirming that the patient had been injected with Flixene, and the primary cause of death was muscle spasm and respiratory distress. Consequently, an official complaint was filed, accusing her of the murder of the patient Abdelkader. Following this, a large number of families of patients who had died in the hospital filed complaints against Nurse Aida, accusing her of being the cause behind the deaths of their relatives. Investigations began, and surprises started to unfold. Charges have been filed against Nurse Aida for the murder of more than 29 patients. Under pressure during the investigations, Aida confessed to have a crush on a doctor named Hisham working at the hospital. And intentionally, Aida would inject patients with Flixene. And then, she would call this specific doctor to stay with him in the same room for as long as possible, while he tried to save the patient from death. Over time, Aida began to feel a pleasure in killing patients, feeling a greater thrill with each murder. Consequently, she repeated the process of killing patients in the same manner. And when she was questioned by police about how she carried out the murders after being transferred to another department away from the intensive care unit, Aida confessed that she injected Flixene into medications before they were consumed by patients in the intensive care unit. This allowed her to achieve the same goal without being in the same room as her victims. During the investigations, a report claimed that Aida attempted suicide by throwing herself off the police station building. Fortunately, she was unharmed, as the investigations took place on the lower floor of the building. The court sentenced Aida to death for the intentional killing of 29 individuals. However, a lawyer named Amer Abu Haif appeared, fully convinced on Aida's innocence. He requested a retrial, presenting new evidence that could acquit Aida of all charges. The trials continued for 3 years, during which public opinion in Egypt shifted from demanding Aida's execution to considering her a victim of injustice, because the lawyer relied on a set of evidence, the most crucial being that the accused individuals, including Dr. Adil Isa, had previous accusations related to medical default, and this led to the weakening of charges against Aida, and also that Aida had been chosen as the ideal employee in the hospital before the accusations. During the trials, the mother of the patient Abdelkader was present in the court, and the lawyer Amer Abu Haif asked her to identify Aida, but she failed to do so. So the lawyer questioned how Abdelkader's mother couldn't recognize the nurse Aida, but accusing her of injecting her son and killing him. And even the nurses who initially accused Aida of killing patients changed their statements, saying she didn't do so. Consequently, the court's verdict changed from the death penalty to 10 years in prison. and the sentence was executed on Aida, but she was released after only 7 years. An Egyptian TV series about her story was produced in 2000, and the mystery remains unsolved. Was Aida truly a criminal and a murderer, or innocent? Until now, no one knows the answer to this question. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Was she an innocent nurse or a murderer? And as usual, see you in the next video.